Hey, welcome to episode 190 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I have a confession to make, and I need to read it, so I say right. When I was in grade school, I looked at the drawings and paintings I did in art class and made a solemn pronouncement. Nope, I'm not an artist. Did you ever see your efforts at something in grade school and shake your head and say, nope, I'll never be good at that? My guest today will definitely have something to say about what I just said. I'm excited to tell you more about her, but first, this.
Today's guest, Ariadne Albright.
Well, welcome back to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm still your host, Jason. I still have a speech impediment, and I still love it. Love it. Let me tell you a little bit more about this great person I'm having on today. Oh my goodness, I do love serendipity. Some time ago, I was walking across the street in downtown Sioux Falls, and I guess this is the way I illustrate walking on a podcast. This woman crossing the street told me, said something like, "Is that you, Jason Freeman?" It was Ariadne Albright. We had collaborated years ago. And I wrote a poem or two to go with her paintings as part of an exhibit in Sioux Falls. Learning about the work she's doing now, curating and making art. Check this out, with people who experience disabilities, hospital patients, staff, people who are elderly, and people who are incarcerated, was incredibly inspiring to me. So right then and there, I took her photo and had her record the pronunciation of her name into my phone. 2 vital steps to getting to today. And now we are here. Without further ado, let me introduce you to this amazing artist and teacher. Hello, Ariadne. Welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast.
Hi, Jason. Thank you for inviting me. This is my first podcast, so I'm very excited to be here.
No way, I didn't even know that. We've literally had a 3-minute conversation in downtown Sioux Falls, and then we've communicated by text to set up the podcast. Aside from that, we haven't connected for years.
Yeah.
So this will be fun. So I'm curious to start way back in your childhood. When did you first experience art as fun?
Oh, this is an interesting question. I think that I might have been 5 or 6, and my mother was very creative. She was a singer and dancer and a visual artist. And she let me borrow some of her supplies, and I watched her paint. I used to love to just sit next to her and watch. And my dad was a poet. He did that to kind of relax his brain. He had a corporate job, but poetry was a way to express these really strong feelings. And then I remember there was a tipping point, Jason. I was probably maybe 10 or 11. And my mom said, slow down. You're using all my supplies. And no, you cannot paint on the walls. And so, this sort of courage kept growing and growing. And I'm pretty sure that no is one of the reasons why I painted murals as a young person, so that I could have these big spaces.
You're pretty sure that saying no, that you couldn't paint on the walls, led you to wanting to paint murals. Talk about channeling that energy in a productive direction.
Right. Welcome to my rebellious streak. And so the thing that I found out about making things, creating, is that it has room for my whole personality, all my emotions, sadness, anger, confusion. That's what I love about it. And that's probably why I ended up where I did professionally, and there are people that are way more talented, in terms of the work that they create and show. But I love the making of it. And there's nothing that should stop us creating.
You find joy in the making of the art.
Yeah.
Please tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's almost a necessity, because we live in our brains a lot. Our bodies are used to, function and live in our homes and do our jobs. But making involves a tremendous amount of play and experimenting with materials. And it's the one place in the world where I count on doing it wrong first. I'm just going to count on it. And so it gives me a tremendous freedom, like I said, Jason, to experiment and to play and to try new ways to express myself. I know the rules of making art, and that came over time through being self-taught and also going to school for it. But creativity is not just for the artist. It's every individual's God-given birthright, really. So the world is very serious, and I need that space to play and to break things and to try my next best idea. Yeah.
When you say you count on doing it wrong, when you have a blank canvas, what is right and what is wrong?
Right. So when I was younger, our family, my father worked for Boeing International, right?
Where did you grow up?
So Boeing, and with that job, with my brothers and sisters and mother, we traveled everywhere. And so I think by 16, I might have been to 16 different schools. Then the family went overseas. And the reason why I mention that is so a great amount of our upbringing was in a Muslim country over in Turkey. We still have friends. We still love the Turkish people. And with that exposure to different cultures, I got a taste for museums. This is a long answer. But
this is a fascinating answer. Keep going. This is great.
The museums, not only they hold our culture and the best of the best, our traditions, our patterns, our colors, our stories, our mythology, our communication with God. And so they can become very sacred. I still love the time spent in museums. And when you fall in love with artwork and you see what's possible, that kind of puts a burden on me, because I know what great art is, and I've experienced it, and then it's just me. So I have to simplify it to a point. For example, on a blank canvas, if I have something I want to do, I might even start one color at a time, because the process takes me on a journey, and I want to be free enough to be open to suggestions from my, creator, my unconscious. So I have to keep it super simple, or I'll just tap out of intimidation. Does that make sense?
So the and I think this happens for most humans. We compare ourselves to a standard, and if we don't live up to that standard, like in your case, the paintings you've seen in many museums where you say, "Oh, I must be doing it wrong," whereas an athlete might compare themselves to a professional athlete and be like, "I'm not that," and on and on and on and on.
So comparison is a great tool because it identifies the standards or the goals or the highest form of that endeavor.
I love the idea that comparison is a great tool. That's a brilliant idea.
What did I say? Say it again.
You said that comparison is a great tool.
Yeah. But then you have to put it in its proper place so that your heart and your body and your mind can explore where you're at, and then achieve what you're capable of, and then some. That's how we grow. But that editor, and then those comparisons, those high standards, you have to know how to manage that. Otherwise, it can be crushing and you don't get to start. So a lot of what I do as an instructor or an arts and health facilitator is I'm like the gatekeeper. I'm like the guardian. Like, I will cast off all those, negative limiting beliefs, and I can provide assurance of like, no, I know how to solve. I'm going to be 60 this year, Jason.
Cool.
I know.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I can solve. I've made a lot of mistakes. I can help you solve them. And I think sometimes we need that until that experience gets in our body of like, oh, it's not fatal. I can, I can do this.
I love the idea you just had of, if we make mistakes, we also have the power to solve them.
Oh, yeah. And I was told at one point in my life that, I wouldn't hide my mistakes anymore. They would end up being great tools. And that took a while. I couldn't see the logic of my what I perceived as failures as being an asset.
Who told you that?
One of my great mentors. Yeah, one of my great mentors that I met when I was going to school at the University of South Dakota in Vermilion. And Nancy is a woman that I can bring a lot of my tangled thinking to, and She's just got a lot of wisdom to keep me on a productive path. So that's, yeah, and we've known each other over 20 years. So
Mm.
it's been a huge help to gather those kinds of people around, who I can learn from. Again, we're going back to that comparison, which that's a tricky, tricky thing, isn't it, Jason?
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. What would you, as a teacher, what would you say? I'm curious to uh, a student like me who was in grade school and looked at my work compared to the other students and said, nope, nope.
Right. So I get that still from students today of all ages and in all of these environments. And so that's a time where I would pull out a couple more techniques to teach you so that it's not about the end result. It's more about the fun of the project, seeing what that pencil can do, seeing what that paintbrush can do. Mhm. And that seems to quell some of that emotional judgment. And we get back to the good labor of making. That's where the healing is. That's where the inspiration is. And then there are all these little traps that can stop us. Do you find that with your poetry and your writing too? That you
Oh yeah. There there's been a few authors, including Natalie Goldberg, who taught me just to wait for the fun of writing, wait for the journey of writing, and it was transformative because when I started off as a writer, I wanted to be a perfectionist in my craft, and that's just torture.
Yeah,
Torture.
true. Right. So I didn't get the bug of perfectionist, right? But I know many. I got this impulse that I am a little messy, I am a little raw around the edges, and I have the right to be at the table. That's what I've been fighting for. The right to just be me, still with good manners and still professionally ordered. But when it comes to expression, that is a pure form of freedom that we can navigate individually, and we can get input from others. I'm checking myself to see if I even believe what I'm saying right now. Sorry, I'm cracking myself up. It's tricky, isn't it? It's to be a creator. It's tricky.
It's tricky. You bring up the balance between being professional and having good manners, and also at the same time being able to say, "Hey, I believe this. I have a I want a seat at a table. And it can be quite the dance between the manners we've been taught and are expected to have, and asserting who we really are as free individuals and free creators.
Yeah, we're getting to something very important. I can tell in my body that this is some of the soul's work. And so in my studio, I protect that. I protect that space and I protect that freedom. And in my work, which is normally what people want to talk to me about, my professional work, um, yes, I'm supporting people's wellness. And yes, we're modeling behavior that can sort of rewire or fortify positive habits. It's also very important to me that individual, person by person, they're getting a positive experience with their own ideas and creating from that, because that's something that they can take with them and hold with them for their entire life, be it at somebody's bedside, be it in the prisons, be it with a large group of differently abled people. That's and it's not Aries, that's our birthright again, as creators. And I just feel like it's a good, it's a tool that keeps us in balance as human beings. It's a very demanding life, especially in our country, you know,
Oh my gosh.
right? Yeah. So it's pretty precious.
So there's a lot of tensions here. Like you mentioned, was like play and Johnny in relation to what you teach various communities. And then also there's a tension between that and living demanding adult lives. That's quite the tension.
Yeah, it can be. It can be. But I believe in the power of art. I'm not a therapist, I just work in sometimes healthcare and uh, community settings, institutions. And so I believe in that healing property of art. And that's what I hang my hat on. I don't have to worry. So, for example, back to you. Were you a fifth grader? Is that when you hung up your hat with drawing?
No, I think probably much earlier, like first or second grade.
Oh, wow.
We think kids have these ideal dark innocent lives sometimes, but kids really are making all sorts of judgments about themselves and saying, "Hey, I can do this, I can't do that."
Yeah, that starts so early. I mean, our processor evolves, but that same inner dialogue happens. It's a response to, you know, being a human in the world and how people are reacting to us, right? So when I say I trust the power of art, um, so much of that for me is technique, elements of art, principles of design. I could spend the rest of my life talking about color theory or visual texture or rhythms and patterns. Do you know what I mean? So you can infuse their own story, their own symbols, their own emotion onto all of that. But the baseline is we're going to come back and we're going to grow in how to make this visually successful.
Visually success.
Yeah, it might not always be visually appealing, but successful in the form of expression, using up the energy that creator wants to give to it, all those things. It's fun.
So you really provide your artists with tools.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had the whole as a writer, I had the whole keyboard of letters as tools I can use to write something.
And all that vocabulary and all of that fun phrasing, right? And the cadence and sounds. Mm-hmm.
So So how do you teach tools so they become something for the artist to play with instead of rules that constrict the artist?
Right.
I know that's a really challenging question. It just came to me. Sorry.
Yeah, you talked about this podcast as being an adventure, and I am just all in for these questions, Jason. Thank you.
Cool.
So usually it's a set of techniques and then a prompt, which gives somebody direction to create. And I'm trying to think of an example, but the last time that I was working with, I'll take Lifescapes. We did a 2-week residency.
And briefly say what Lifescape is for viewers who don't know.
So that's an amazing institution or organization in Sioux Falls, much like CESDAC is in Vermilion, and I've worked with both groups. And my good friend Jamie runs the Center for the Arts at Lifescapes, and she does visual art residencies, and then she does performance and theater-based. And right now, she and Deb Workman from the South Dakota Arts Council and Children.
I interviewed Deb and her colleague a few months ago.
Do you think it was Jamie?
Is Jamie from like Texas or something?
No.
No, I should know. It was someone else.
So Jamie's program serves, I think, 400 or 600 individuals experiencing the disability from children.
You said 400 or 600? Holy cow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So when she has me up there for 2 weeks, we work with just around 200 people, which takes staff and which takes management. So where do we start? I know, and she's always challenging me because she wants really good projects, and it's just been amazing. It's just been a huge influence on my residency work. But I would say the prompt that we were looking at, because she wanted a large scale mural, is I had been a whole series of the South Dakota South Dakota Magazine had been donated to me. And the first stage of that project was to go through the magazines and pick out landscapes and animals that were indigenous to our state. And we started to do collages or arrangements. And we did those on large magnets so that people could take them home. But you see how it's kind of a lower stakes introduction to the visual arts. And with something like, and we can work with any material, but something like magazines was a way for me to assess people's level of interest, people's sensibility, what they were drawn to. And then the cutting and arranging gave us a lot of ideas for what the large scale mural ended up looking like. And then once we had a final design and sketched, yes, I did the sketching part, but then we were adapting and modifying the paintbrushes, rollers, different, so that people could work in the round, so that we could have everyone's hand help create this piece.
So it could have everyone's hand help create the piece.
So I'm a big believer in doing individual projects that people can, really invest themselves in with their choice and their energy, and then they made that thing. That's for them. But every time we do that, we have to make something for the good, for a collaboration, for the whole. Right?
And also, you're still rebelling against your mom not saying you couldn't draw on the walls.
You would love that. You would love that. Yep. Well, and I also think it's good for us. There's a certain preciousness with art, our art, and I suffer from it too. And it's like a child, and sometimes I have trouble, releasing it or sharing it. So I think those are really good attitudes to have in the studio, of creating for self and also creating in service of others.
Wow.
So yes,
Now that you mention it, something like art has always in my mind seemed like such an individual endeavor. The artist getting the piece of art on the page, but as you talk, I see it can be just this amazing community endeavor too. Which, wow.
you know what I'm experiencing, Jason? I'm experiencing this insight that my entire career is based off of some of my character flaws, healing some of my character flaws. Because, as a young artist, I spent all my time alone in the studio and just wanting to have my work be seen and noticed. And it wasn't until I made that switch to bringing my art in service of others, and if it's this is a very emotional point for me, because then the world kind of opened up. And who saw that coming? Who knew?
And wow, thanks for sharing that. And from your point, I'm getting we were talking about the perfectionism before, and I'm getting when an artist is only siloed in the studio or at the computer or whatever, that perfectionistic voice really doesn't have the counterbalance of community to like give other opinions.
Yeah, that's right. And you don't have to give up one or the other. And the balance, the good news is, to me, the balance is of our own creation. I'm naturally an introvert. I've tried many times to force myself into situations, and yes, good skill sets have come from that. And maybe it's this gift of turning 60 this year, but that I can find a balance between community and individual work that suits my character, and I think others can too. The world is big enough for all of us.
That sounds like a huge point that we really want not only ourselves to internalize, but whoever's listening to internalize, that we as human beings can find a balance between being individuals and being working by ourselves and community. It doesn't have to be like I'm either totally an introvert or totally an extrovert. We can find a balance between those two things. So a huge point.
Thank you for that summary. It's it's really kind of amazing to have this conversation where I can cast things out, you know, unrehearsed, and have you catch them. So that's really wonderful.
This is so fun because this isn't only on rehearse, and of course it's unscripted, but we literally haven't ever had conversations. So this dialogue, I mean, we had conversations
Yeah,
about what we were creating, but this dialogue is totally new to us interacting.
it is. Yeah, it had to have been over 20 years ago that you wrote poems,
Actually,
right?
actually, it was 2009, 2010. So,
That long ago. I'd
how
have
do
to do some math.
how do I do this?
2024. What was the year?
2009, 2010.
15 years ago. Oh, that's good. Oh, neat.
So first, would you talk about what inspired? Well, changing subjects for a
Yeah.
second. We're go change the subject, but would you talk about who inspired you to paint this?
Yeah, and it ties back beautifully, Jason, with what we were speaking about earlier, which is this sense of fun and play. That painting, Perennial Yawn, is a portrait of my infant son, who's now 25, and his first attempts at writing his name. You see those forms in the background. And the top angel with her trumpet is was a 15th century Italian painter. And I was repurposing or appropriating that image to herald in this new soul and new communicator.
Mm.
And so that sense of history, but also playfulness, because it is a ridiculous composition. You're not typically, it's going to either be all of one thing, representational or historical, or his marks are very abstract. And yeah, the only thing I'll say too, Jason, is there's been one addition since then to this painting. And yeah. So Perennial Yawn is this casualness of newborns coming into the world and all that's in front of them, which I absolutely love about children. And the only other thing I added was my son Cyrus has become a coder. So right along that largest space of white, do you see that sort of C shape? I've embedded his name in like one of those computer codes like Linux or C3 in Swarovski crystals. And that sort of brought that heralding full circle for me. So now it's that's sometimes typical of my paintings. It might take years to figure out what I was trying to say.
So you actually use crystals to. Oh my gosh.
So it's a code. It's another code of his name, right? Because that was his first attempt at writing his name in like English. And it's another version of his name, only large scale and glittery, because I'm just that girl.
And it shows how he's grown and blossomed into a human being. That's amazing.
And that's his language now. Computers.
Wow. Ariadne, could I do something that I've never done in 190 episodes?
Oh yeah, this is the place for it.
I would like to read the poem I I created to go with your amazing painting. So will will you briefly describe what P3 was?
You'll have
So
to help me remember. It was painters and poets, right?
so it was a show at the pavilion that believed in matching painters and poets and believed in the goodness of the two art forms together.
Thank you. Jason, do you remember the curator at the time of P3?
Maybe Howard.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm not sure. So I'll read the poem. Perennial yawn. Wake up. I want to tell you that it's okay to delight in red balls, to savor the ripple as your hand passes water during bath time, to broadcast mashed potatoes towards the far reaches of the kitchen floor, and to not know the words as adults focus on the evening news. You don't need to listen as you shake a rattle, bounce up and down, and wonder at the sounds, making the letters make you much awake and laughing through school, from scribbles to awareness, splashing through the primeval layers of poetry, math, and friendship, reaching towards the rebel sun for enough right words to nourish wisdom growing quietly as the moonrise within your depth.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So I knew before we started this podcast that there was some kind of major blessing in us. I was at the South Dakota Arts Conference at the Pavilion and was going to the the new Levitt to hear music for the first time, and that was amazing. And when we
in Sioux Falls, we have this outdoor stage called the Levitt, and they have 50 free concerts or something in the summer. It's amazing. Back to you. I just wanted
it
to.
was so well staffed, and it was such a lovely experience. I mean, there's a vibrancy in Sioux Falls that's really, really wonderful for the arts. So it was super interesting and fortuitous that we met on a crosswalk down.
We literally met in a crosswalk.
Yeah. And so here I'm going to go even a little deeper. The poem that you just read, in response to the painting was the reason we knew each other, and that was 15 years ago. And I noticed in the catalog that you shared with this podcast that I was living in Belle Fourche at the time. And Jason, I am currently this summer working to move back to Belle Fourche. And so all these 15 years I've been East River, and I brought my security blanket of books because my specialization well, that was the time that my parents were passing away from cancer, and I was back. People have heard this story of a leave of absence from Claflin University in South Carolina. And at the university, I was on a 10-year track to become a professor, etc. But I came back to be with family, and then when I needed work, that brought me into artists in community, healthcare and community settings through the South Dakota Arts Council's Artists in Schools and Communities program. I've been an artist in residence, roster artist with them since 2007.
Wow.
So, but then that morphed into this specialization of working with, populations of people that might not have, in non-traditional settings, I should say. And that's led into books that I've edited or written. This whole kind of specialization of teaching others how to bring their creativity into these environments. Again, going back to, my own personal weakness, which is when I was invited to the cancer center, at first I was afraid, but I figured since we'd just lost our parents to this disease, there was probably something healing waiting for me. And it turns out that in some of these settings, I feel very at home. I feel absolutely relaxed, and I'm kind of directed. I always know, okay, what I should do next and what I should do next. And when I met with younger artists in these areas doing this work, they had more insecurities or had more questions. And that's what led to me teaching a class. I'm going to go on my professional spiel now, Jason. Heads up.
Good, please.
So other people asking questions, and we would troubleshoot or brainstorm how to respond or how to adapt certain projects. So it started with one class at the University of South Dakota about artists in healthcare, because I wanted to make sure other creators knew that this was available to them. It's a skill set that they could stay in their community if they wanted to and do the work. And then I knocked on the door of Sanford Vermilion Medical Center 11 years ago. That was serendipitous because my son Cy wanted to stay in Vermilion to finish high school. So I knocked on the door and said I would like a job. And they said, okay, come in and try your arts programming. We have some problems to solve. And the main one was to increase quality of life experiences for people in the memory unit, advanced dementia, special needs, geriatric. And I partnered with a team of clinical, there was a director of nursing, physicians, etc., and they would refer people to me. And this experiment that I was supporting and they were guiding was to reduce the use of antipsychotic medications for behaviors. And instead, we would just make art for certain periods of time. And we ended up winning a wonderful award within Sanford Initiative because for PRNs, which are requested medication to reduce anxiety, those were dropped within 8 months by 25% and held for 5 years. And so that's what the story of that is why I wrote my first book.
What was it, the title?
What's that? Creative Care and Artists in Healthcare. And then the second one was the same thing, creative care projects, because I wanted to capture this moment of I'm going out of my studio and I'm going into the workforce. I got to write this down. This is really exciting.
Wow.
And so then that became, there's more. Then that became my work with the National Organization for Arts and Health. And I was on I asked to be on the professionalization committee because, again, I wanted more creatives to feel welcome in healthcare and community settings that were non-traditional. And so far, it's usually the administrators that open the door. And again, I want us artists to have a vote. And so this core curriculum for arts and health professionals, I helped edit it with Farrell Kuritzis at the University of Florida. This is a closet of 52 practicing leaders in our country, and it's the summarizing sort of tenets, code of ethics, standards of practice. Okay, I'm wrapping it up because I know we're on a timeline. And so that single class at the University of South Dakota became a certificate. And this fall, Jason, it will be a minor through the College of Fine Arts. You can get a minor in arts and health to do this work.
So the program teaches other people to have the skills to go into all the settings you go into.
Yeah.
And teach us.
Yeah. And it's not just.
It's going to be a minor.
That's right, this fall. And it's not just visual artists. It's for movement and dance. It's for writers, poets. It's for theater. And I even like the contemplative arts, because a lot of times artists are brought into these facilities through spiritual care, right? Because that's part of our constitutional rights. And so it's not just about what I do, it's about what's going on in this country and even a little bit globally, so that people are prepared. Some of my students go on to become art therapists or expressive art therapists. But for folks that want to stay in their community and use their creativity to serve, that's what I'm also interested in helping people with.
So what you said in the last 5 minutes just generated another 2 hours of questions. Let me have that time. And what are your thoughts on, like as artists, we can sometimes be afraid to go knock on the door of the administrator because we think, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but we think we're just artists and they're doing whatever they're doing. What are your thoughts on artists having the confidence to really ask for a seat at the table and say, hey, this is valuable, this can complement what you're doing?
That's a big one. And I love working with artists and creatives, because that's also been a hard-earned skill. Because I used to just like to be a bull in a china shop and just barge my way in. That's not completely gone. I have a certain persistence. So we'll go back to manners, which is where we started, right? And
one of the many places where we
That's right. So I'm sorry to say that sometimes people are too polite to get the work that they want, to ask for what they really want. And so in this entrepreneurial genre, I love being prepared. And that also means knowing what you want and being able to describe it in a page or less. Sometimes we oversell or over-deliver. And so I'm constantly trying to be aware of time management and not wasting other people's time, because there's such a demand for our attention. And if somebody is polite enough to give me attention, like an hour today on your podcast, I want to make sure that I'm doing my job to deliver that, not just to rest in the fact that I made it into the room. What is it that I want? What is it that I bring to the table? And do I have some kind of indication that I know what's going on in the field or with my colleagues, my coworkers? Because the thing that I had to get over is this idea that all my best ideas are absolutely original and mine. It's like, no, I just want to be a small part of the team. Let me show you how. So that's another 3-hour conversation with you. In gaining confidence, preparation helps. Preparation. Oh, and mentorship. Just mentorship. Having someone to push things up against so that you can use their experience to speed up your growth.
Use their experience to speed up your growth. Nice. So I'm excited to ask you this next question because I'm very excited for your response, Ariadne. At the end of my podcast, I always ask my guests what imperfect best means to them, what doing that imperfect best means to them. What it means to me is I have a vision in my mind of what I want to go for in life, and I go for it, and then things come up. I make mistakes, obstacles come up, and instead of letting those stop me, I try to learn from them and move back forward. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you?
And you're saying imperfect best?
Yeah, imperfect best.
Yeah, that's really empowering. It's really, really empowering. And my approach or my definition would be very similar in that I like to attend to what is crossing my path, what is necessary for the day. I love to play out in the future and love to reflect in the past. But that service happens with no. What should I really be doing to move my goals forward? And not all my goals or my life's mission are serious or professional or drudgery or daunting. It's that balance again of, okay, if this is what I'm seeing to date that I'm heading towards, then let's work towards supporting all of that. Whilst, like you were saying, you got to respond to what happens and what it actually happens, because if I'm growing my skill to be very efficient and clear in my communication and asking for what I want, I've got to have the grace to let people take their time to respond. I can't just I love to shove on the world sometimes. And it's like, no, just let people do their best too. And you better find something else to do in the meantime, Ari, because you can't keep, shoving on people. It just hurts their feelings. Does that make sense?
So part of doing your imperfect best, it sounds like, is cultivating patience, which is so challenging sometimes.
That's beautifully said. To cultivate patience and to make sure that I'm working on I'm working on the things within my lifetime, I've lost the words for it, and not spending time worrying about what others are doing. Yeah, that's where the patience comes for me. Because when it's all said and done, if I'm starting to get twisted about something not happening in time, instead, that's room for me to do the next thing, you know?
Something not happening in time has room for me to do the next thing. That's amazing. Should be on a t-shirt. Amazing.
You're too kind.
Well, thanks so much for saying yes. Oh, being on the Awkwardly Awesome podcast. If someone wants to connect with either your art or connect with what you do in the community or find your books, how should they do that?
Well, take down my name, Ariadne Albright. I've got emails with that address through USD and personal emails. Also, Creative Care is the name of my company. So you can Google that, and I have emails and websites connected to that. And the link to
CreativeCare.com.
It's actually Creative Care LLC.com.
Oh, CreativeCareLLC.com.
Yeah. So it's very easy to get a hold of me, because once you go to any of those websites, my phone number is on there as well as my email addresses.
You're lucky to have a unique name for this stuff. Having Jason Freeman is not so easy.
How many Jason Freemans are there?
A few. Well, thank you for saying yes, and this has been wonderful.
It really has, Jason. I can't thank you enough. I knew that by the title of your podcast, I was just going to be fine, just being myself, and it's been really an interesting conversation. So thank you very much.
Wow. Well, first of all, she's so inspiring, isn't she? I mean, amazing and just the freedom we all have to create is truly just so exciting, and on and on and on and on. And I also want to emphasize reconnecting with people from your past who you've lost touch with can be a great thing. Sometimes we're like, that person was cool, but it's been so long, it would be awkward to contact them again. What will we talk about? Or maybe there was some misunderstanding. Oh my gosh. And sometimes it's just easier not to reach out. But the people from your past are part of your life. They have so much wisdom to share with you and joy to share, mutual memories. So I encourage you to reconnect with those people. It's not too late, and some maybe won't want to reconnect, and that's human freedom. Some don't, but a lot will. A lot will be grateful that you reached out. So anyway, thanks for tuning into Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. If you have comments, please, we love comments. Leave them, and tune in next week for another Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Have a great day and smile.